we're going to move on specifically to acquiring and retaining landlords, which is obviously very, very important for a lot of people watching this. There's a lot of pressure on landlords now, which is affecting many agents' stock. So there were actually quite a lot of questions that came in about this topic.
Yep.
What are your views on acquiring and retaining landlords?
How long we got, Lauren? So look, you know, I wrote a book called The Landlord's Friend, and I like to think that I've done a lot of campaigning and I do it. So it's firstly, you understand your landlords. So still, agents are very complacent generally. When I do my talks, I say, how many of you go out to networking events? How many of you go to the council? How many go to property investment talks? How many of you go to NLA meetings? And I do a talk and 4 or 5 hands go up out of 50, 60 people, which for me is not good enough. You have to network. You know, I was taking my dog for a walk 2 months ago around the block. A postman stopped me. He recognised me from my programme on Channel 5, started talking to me. He's a landlord. He's got 9 properties and he's a postman. Okay, landlords are everywhere. You have to engage. You have to network. You have to build your brand up. So firstly, getting yourself out there. And then, of course, what is important, I write loads and loads and loads of content. Agents don't write enough content. They are buy-to-let experts. I know my area. I know that I rented a property from you, Mr. Landlord, that made an inquiry 3 weeks ago, and I achieved this X amount of rent, and I'll make sure that it's not void. Because the first questions a landlord would ask you is, how much do you charge? How quickly can you rent a property? Okay, you have a and they're going to call and they're going to speak to loads of other agents. And the days of an agent being full management, Lauren, 5% full management are well and truly over, especially with client money protection coming in. You know, you can say, yes, we have a good service, we do this. You know, actually, we communicate with you, we'll find out and we'll let you know about if there's any maintenance issues. And we have systems, you know, in place where we will communicate with you about, you know, when we did our inspections, and we pay the rent the following day. Landlords want to hear all of that. So the pitch is really, really important, okay? And making sure you keep them for as long as possible. And if there is a problem with a tenant, how do you deal with it? How quickly do you deal with it? How do you manage that expectation?
How do you avoid, Paul, what would you say in terms of scaremongering that landlords have become scared and they're worried about? Has that helped agents?
Yeah,
or
most
agents
definitely.
seeing landlords sell up?
Exactly. So look, in again all the years I've been dealing with it, landlords are really feeling vulnerable. So have agents with a tenant fee ban, you know. But actually, one hand takes, another hand gives. Okay. You've got landlords now. There's now the latest figure I saw was 176 rules and regulation in renting the property out. Shall I tell you what they are, Lauren? I don't know what they are, but there's 100.
Sure, we have time for 176, but
and that was from the Residential Landlords Association. If you're going to say, you know, I'm going to protect you, landlord, and I'm going to make sure that you're compliant with HMO regulations or the right to rent or the Deregulation Act, you know, or the gas safety certificate, if you list down and put that information, a landlord, especially if they're full-time working, will give you the keys because it is their biggest asset. And when they give the keys over to a letting agent, okay, they're losing control. You know, I do talks to landlords on how you should find a letting agent. So I say go on allagents.co.uk and find out on review sites. I come from it from a different angle. So, you know, the compliance element of it and the legislation is a big, big thing. And that's what letting agents have really got to push more when they do get in front of landlords.
Great. We've got a couple of questions that were submitted on this topic. So one of them being, how can I grow my client base when new legislation is contributing to so many landlords actually leaving the market?
Fine. So look, you can't stop a landlord from leaving. I mean, look, we haven't even touched on Section 21, which I know is coming up very shortly, and that is a big, big challenge. You know, if a landlord leaves the marketplace, they do it because of not just the legislation, but the tax changes, and actually it's too much aggravation. I'm not yielding. I'm not getting the money I want to get, and you're getting a lot of landlords diversifying the market. You know, it's very hard for you to change a landlord's mind if he's, you know, if he's getting 3% yield, or and it's just not working. It's not, because obviously, you know, they want to look at trying to reinvest and make more money in pensions. At least, all I can say, if a landlord is leaving, and you will get landlords in your portfolio leaving, at least make sure that you get the instruction to do the sale, you know. And if one goes, then how do you find the others? And that's being proactive and thinking out the box and thinking how a landlord will think. You know, a lot of letting agents are landlords. Okay, think about how they would instruct, and you get a lot of landlords that set up letting agents because they've had a bad experience with a letting agent. That's another issue as well. You know, poor service, or agents haven't passed on the rent. And I know loads and loads of landlords over the course of years that have ended up setting up their own letting agents because they felt that they needed to they wanted a better service and can offer a better service.
Great, thank you very much for that, Paul. Another question that came in: as an agent, how do I persuade my customers that remaining a landlord is a good idea for the future?
What do you mean by that? Say that again, Lauren.
So as an agent, how do I persuade my customers, so presumably landlords, that remaining a landlord is a good idea looking into the future?
So look, you know what? People need to sleep somewhere. You know, we have 9 million tenants. I mean, a lot of everything that's happening at the moment, we have an election, and we haven't talked about Brexit. And I know you were going to throw me off the webinar if I talked about and mentioned Brexit, so I do apologise. But it is a big issue, and everything is tenant-based. But tenants need to sleep somewhere. Tenants can't afford deposits. There is a life of them being a tenant, okay? And actually, you know, we have a lot of landlords that have moved into multi-lets and HMOs, and I've seen a huge spike of landlords moving their portfolio in the short-term let industry, like Airbnb and limited to 90 days. You know what it is? It's about longevity. Buy-to-let is longevity. People need to sleep somewhere. But landlords need to up their game with regard to their properties, because there is so many landlords out there fighting for the same tenants. You know, if you've got a good property, you've got a good agent, okay, you'll rent it. A landlord wants a property rented for as long as possible. They don't want voids, they don't want maintenance charges. More importantly, they want a decent tenant.
I think also you mentioned pensions before, but I think it's still, property is still a good investment. And I think if you're willing and able to pay the management fees, and your rents are coming in on a regular basis, and you're not losing money on the property, then it's still a really good investment.
Interest rates are rock bottom. They're it's so cheap, our money, and that is going in landlord's favour.
Great, thank you both.